Episode 7, Sacrament. After she woke up, it took Nova some time to understand where she was. Her neck was numb, and her back ached. Lifting her head from the book that served as a pillow, the witch sat up straighter and stretched slowly. What year is it? She rubbed her eyes, idly examining the pile of volumes in front of her. The life of Raffaello, masters of the Renaissance, the greatest artists. I didn't even realize I fell asleep. The book was that boring, Nova flinched. Lucian was sitting in the chair at the other end of the room. He definitely likes catching people off guard. Hello, Lucian. Smiling, he nodded instead of greeting her. You work tirelessly. The catcher yawned, covering her mouth with her hand. I'm hoping to stumble upon something. It's been a while since we solved the mystery of the book, but nobody's been able to figure out the meaning of the clue. I'm starting to think we made a mistake. It's not even about Raffaella. The vampire shrugged. We can't be sure either way, but for now, all that's left to do is to continue our search. Nova didn't reply. She was getting impatient. She had to find something, make some progress, because otherwise... She shook her head, and only now realized that there was a black cloak draped over her shoulders. It's not mine. Lucian, who had returned to reading his book, noticed her confusion, and explained without taking his eyes off the pages. You were asleep when I came in. It was quite cold down here at times, and so I lent you my cloak. Oh, I see. That's very nice of you. Do you mind if I give it back later? You can keep it. I don't get cold, anyway. Version of the outfit with the cloak has been added to your wardrobe. Why do you carry cloaks with you, then? It's a matter of taste. What brings you to the vault, then? A task from Constantino. He gestured to a couple of sealed envelopes that were lying on the shelf. I could have guessed. He must really appreciate you. You do a lot for him. He's not very sentimental. But I must admit, it's nice when someone notices your efforts. He smiles in gratitude. My task was to leave the papers, but I decided to stay and help a little after seeing how hard you were working here. I hope you don't mind my company. The more eyes, the better. Did you find anything interesting? He pursed his lips. I'm not sure that would help in any way, but one of Raffaella's surviving records gave me an idea. What if we turned to his works instead of texts? If I were an artist, I'd hide my secrets in my paintings. Well, that makes sense. I'll need to talk to Vesper. We can split into two groups. One group will continue working with text, and the other will move on to paintings. Nova exhaled, thinking about how long it would take them to thoroughly analyze the many paintings that the artist had created. She suddenly felt an uneasy and pleasant pang in her temples. Oh, my nape gave me a headache. Should have some coffee for a boost of energy. I wouldn't say no to that, but I need to go to the nest and then come back here. It's going to take too much time. Not necessarily. Putting down the book, the vampire approached the table. We have a lounge nearby. There's a coffee machine there. We, as in who? Lucian tilted his head, smiling slyly. Vampires, then. Well, there will be coffee, so the answer is clear. I agree with that. I'm in. How long is the walk? Oh, we're not walking. He beckoned for her to follow into a dark corner of the room. The shadows? Are you scared, Huntress? No. I won't get clutched through, will I? I don't know. We'll see, I suppose. Come. He snorted, but stepped forward and stood very close to him. Nova heard him chuckle when she stood right next to him. You are scared. Lucian didn't seem to mind being so close. His hand gently rested on her waist, sending a wave of warmth over her skin. The catcher swallowed. It's going to be okay. Exhale. The shadows envelop you. Become one with them. I'm not sure I understand how to do this. You will. Get ready. She tried to breathe deeper. The shadows around them began to thicken, turning into a black haze. She didn't know how long it took to travel through the realm of darkness, finding herself in a hall where the classical music was playing softly and cigar smoke mixed with the smell of coffee. The young woman held on to Lucian, fearing that she would fall. He gently sat her down in a leather chair nearby. Wow. The witch still didn't fully understand what exactly her body was feeling. She was somewhat disoriented, but still attempted to look around. The discomfort she felt when glancing at one of the lamps made her immediately cover her face with both hands. Her eyes began to burn. Ouch! When coming out of the shadows, it always hurts to look at the light. That's why our lights are so dim, but it was your first time walking the shadows, so even this level of lighting will be unpleasant. What a pity you didn't tell me about this sooner. Nova lowered her hand, still squinting. Lucian put something in her palm. Eye drops. They'll relieve the irritation. She somehow managed to open her eyes to put in the remedy, and it didn't make her feel better right away. After blinking a couple of times, she waited until her vision returned to normal. That helped. I don't recall seeing you use eye drops, though. I only need them if I have to go out in the sun in the middle of the day. I'm used to most lighting conditions. The witch returned the bottle. Does Jorge make them for you? No. He doesn't know much or such recipes. We make them ourselves. I'll brew some coffee. Low status path. Before she could object, he left her. She shrank into her chair, stealing glances at the few people present. No one paid any attention to her. Soon Lucian returned. He put 2 cups of hot coffee on the table and sat down in the opposite chair. Yeah, we get it. We're low status. No one here would hurt you. He said it in a serious tone, sensing her tension, and she immediately felt embarrassed for her own fear. The catcher was about to reply, but stopped when she noticed a man in a familiar uniform in the corner of the room. Magistrum? Oh, you mean Stefano. He's ours. What does that even mean? We must have allies among the Magistrum. Sometimes we manage to make a mutually beneficial deal, and they serve as our agents, I suppose. But what can you give them? And what if they betray you? They would risk revealing their own involvement with others. It would ruin their lives, but of course we conduct thorough checks to make sure everything's legitimate. Also, they really want to get what we promise in return for loyalty. The man from the Magistrum stood up and bowed to a woman who approached him. They want to become vampires? But you're not allowed to turn people. How? He only shrugged in response, taking a sip of coffee. The witch reached for her cup as well, deep in thought. Looks like they have eyes and ears everywhere. The drink burned her lips and she winced. Do people unlike you come here often? Not too often, but we use the place for a variety of meetings, so the members of the clan aren't surprised when they see people like you here. The young woman nodded. I think I should get to know Lucian better. She shifted in the chair. Can I ask you a question? You could try, and technically you just did. How old are you? 115. That was a quick answer. It usually takes me a couple of minutes to remember my age. And even so, I say the wrong number half the time. The vampire nodded. I'm just lucky to have a good memory is all. Though some might argue that it's actually a curse when your lifespan is hundreds of years. He looked down into his cup, tapping it with his finger. What do you think about that? When he answered, his voice sounded quieter, meeker than usual. Lucian touched the ring hanging on a chain around his neck. I think I'd never sacrifice a happy memory. Even a second of it, no matter what I'm offered in return. As if returning to his senses, he sat a little straighter, setting the empty mug aside. A thoughtfulness of left him, replaced by a familiar confidence. I'd like to ask you something, too, if you don't mind. Where is your family now? They left Rome. They did. The vampire was studying her face, as if trying to figure out if she was lying. Nova leaned back in her chair, offering a firm answer. We don't talk. To be honest, I don't even know if they're alive. And you aren't curious? She shrugged. I don't know. An unwelcome thought began to swarm in her mind, like a slimy worm. Maybe because everything would be much easier if... She forced herself back to reality, trying to appear relaxed. I guess I am, but our relationship is too complicated. I don't think they want to contact them. Lucian gave her a thoughtful touching his fingers to his temple. You know, in the past, many people believed that vampires could read minds because of our ability to get into people's heads. I was always glad that we can. My own thoughts are sometimes a little too much, so I'm not eager to know that what crazy ideas others are entertaining. He leaned in closer, resting his elbows on his knees. His pendants chimed against each other. Nova caught his gaze direct, full of curiosity. But you, Nova... Oh, what I wouldn't give to be able to solve you. I'm like a Rubik's Cube. What do you want? I'll let myself hope that I will succeed in the end. You're so sure I'm hiding something. I don't even know how that should make me feel flattered or insulted. He spread his hands. I'd never allow myself to insult a woman. That would make me, my late mother, turn over in her grave. As for secrets, everyone has one or two. Nova crossed her legs, clasping her hands on her knee. That means you do too. Want to tell me every little piece of information about yourself? That would be fair, wouldn't it? Fairness is a good thing, no doubt, but it's also extremely boring and therefore not particularly interesting. Plus, it doesn't always help you get what you want. I'd say more often than not, it only moves you further away from your goal. Wow, and here I was thinking you had both old-fashioned morals and manners. I was mistaken then, since fairness doesn't mean much to you. Well, I wouldn't say it like that. You know what? You can ask me one more question. One that I can answer with a yes or a no. But you will owe me an answer in return, not now, but sometime in the future. After all, it would only be fair. It's a tempting offer. Were you born in Rome? Have you ever been married? Was it your decision to become a vampire? But I'm going to refuse. Why not? Was it your decision to become a vampire? Yes. I suspected as much. Well, thank you for the conversation. I guess we should get back to work. They got up and Lucian transported them back to the vault. At least we got some coffee. Nova returned to her room late at night with her head buzzing and ringing in her ears. I'm going to bed early. However, as it turned out, someone had other plans. Hearing a quick knock on the door, the catcher opened it. Vesper was standing in the doorway, and it was clear from her expression that what the reason was for her visit. Tasteful outfit. Exquisite Yeah, no, that is quite exquisite. Usual outfit. Yeah, no, I like that one. I do. Let me just take a look at the tasteful outfit. I mean, yeah, it's tasteful too, but it's all black. With also gold trimmings. But anyway, exquisite. Also, her hair kind of looks nice. Nova, is everything ready? She forced herself to keep a neutral expression to hide the hundreds of emotions that were bubbling underneath the surface. Vesper nodded and tilted her head, seeking permission to enter. Nova stepped back to let her in. You will be initiated into someone else's identity, so you need to remember some information. She took a folder out of her bag and put it on the table. Here's everything you need to know. The catcher opened the dossier. Francesca Amato, born in Rome on October 20th, 1976. Crystal magic? I don't know anything about crystal magic. You don't have to. The initiation is the same for all others. No one will ask you to demonstrate your abilities. How did you manage to arrange this? Through money and my connections, my own and someone else's. But what about my face? I'm wanted. Yes, but only a couple people saw you in person. I contacted Constantino, the vampires found out, who the Magistrum will place on duty during your initiation. They made sure you won't cross paths with anyone who might recognize you. And in case things go south, someone will be there to help you. Okay, so let's say my face is fine, but my eyes, they're orange and only happens with time catchers. Contacts won't do the trick up close. They'll identify me in no time. I haven't solved this problem yet. Is there anything else I can do to help? I doubt it, but thank you for offering. I wouldn't send you there unless I had a reliable way out of the situation. And when is everything supposed to happen? Tomorrow. What? I got an opportunity and didn't want to miss it. Such chances are hard to come by. The sooner you reach your true potential, the better. For you and the Alliance. Vesper frowned slightly. Folding her arms across her chest, she tried to catch the other woman's eyes, but Nova turned away, biting her lip. What's the problem? Nothing. I've already explained. You don't want to mark. I'm starting to feel like it's not just that, considering it's not the first time you've hesitated when it comes to initiation. You have to think about the goal, not only yourself. Think about everything you can help us achieve if you just... The moon Harris path. Nova straightened up, clenching her fists. Not just Vesper. I can't just forget about how this will affect my life. I'm not asking you to forget, but I am asking you to remember what you signed up for by joining us. The path requires sacrifice. From all of us. You'll become stronger, yes, some doors will close for you, but even more will open. Try to forget about your fear for a second. Imagine what it will feel like to finally find yourself. It's worth it. Trust me. Vesper herself definitely believed that. Her eyes glowed with conviction strong as steel. When the catcher didn't answer, the older witch gently took her chin. Look at me, Nova. The touch of the cold fingers made Nova shudder, and the sound of her own name lay on her skin in goosebumps. It's like throwing off the chains. You'll finally understand who you really are. So you know exactly who you are? The question came out in an uneven whisper. Of course. And I know what I want. And what is that? Freedom for others. Is that all? Nothing else? A challenge bordering of an accusation of lying. The woman didn't answer. Her gaze slowly slid over the young witch's face, studying her features so closely for the first time. Too closely. She squinted. Vesper is intrigued by the feelings you invoke in her. You have beautiful eyes. And you are trying to change the subject. I like it when you don't hide them behind contacts. I bet they'll burn even brighter after initiation. Be proud of who you are, witch. Vesper lowered her hand. Be ready by 7 in the morning, don't be late. She left the room without saying goodbye. Nova changed her clothes and climbed into bed, hoping that sleep would save her from a swarm of thoughts and doubts. That hope, of course, was futile. I knew I'd probably have to do it, but... Swallowing, she pulled the blanket over her head as if she could hide from the world. As she did when she was a child, she wanted to disappear, to no longer be tormented by questions about those she was and why. She wanted to allow herself to enjoy new opportunities, but she remembered the stern voice and the words it told her all too well. I must do this. I have no choice. Curled up, the woman forced herself to sleep. She had to get up early, after all. It was a gloomy morning. Nova started getting ready. I'll choose my ceremonial outfit later. Now I need to decide what to wear for the road. We have Taurus, Gemini, what the actual hell, Cancer, Aries. They're very interesting, and I don't know why they're associated with signs, but... Oh god, it's so bright, it's yellow. I really like the Cancer outfit, I'm not gonna lie. That's very pretty. Seriously, Geminis do not go that bright and exuberant. Aries is kind of nice, Taurus is very light, but yeah, no, I'm gonna go with Cancer. Very pretty, I like the black and blue. Is this my choice? All good. A bun with braids, a curly updo, dyed. Okay, so a bunch of basically hair options. Current hairstyle. Yeah, I'm gonna stay with that. All good. Before going to the common room, Nova read the dossier several times, trying to remember all the details. They were expecting her. Vesper was at a table. Onyx was set on the sofa. Shin stood in the doorway. Entering, the catcher immediately felt the anamorphic's somewhat irritated gaze. They never discussed what would happen in her room. Nova diligently avoided Onyx, coming up with the stupidest excuses to leave whenever they found themselves in the same space. Guilt was eating at her heart, but she couldn't find the courage to start this conversation. Ignoring the unpleasant feeling in her chest, she croaked, "Good morning, everyone." Okay, Shin has nothing to say. "Good morning, did you get enough sleep?" Nova stared at her, and the one look was worth 1,000 words. "Got it. You can take a nap in the car." "I don't think I'll be able to fall asleep." But she kept that thought to herself, nodding instead of answering. "Let's see if you're well prepared. What's your name?" "I know it's not Francis. We're gonna go with Francesca Amato." "That was easy. Moving on. A date of birth, 1976. Oh, we got two 76s here. October. Good. And your magic?" "Crystals. We remember that one." "Great." Vesper continued asking questions, and Nova answered each of them correctly, confidently, without hesitation. "Well done." "Thank you." Jorge entered the room. He was rubbing his eyes and struggling to keep from yawning. "Warning." Noticing the bottle in his hand, the catcher tensed, shifting her gaze from the herbalist to the older witch and back. "I knew it, elixirs. How long will I have to stay in bed this time?" "Oh, no. There are no poisons in it, I promise. I've been brewing it all night. There's only one issue. It didn't have time to steep, so you may feel sick at first. But you need to keep everything down, otherwise it won't work." Sighing heavily, Nova held out her hand. "Couldn't have literally steeped it?" "Take a look." "It's in a book, Reading Rainbow." What is it gonna do to me?" "It will only change the color of your eyes." "It will look completely natural." "Drink it an hour before you go to the initiation. That should be enough time for the elixir to kick in." "I thought we were going now." "Oh no, you'll need to visit the archives first." "The archives?" "You'll get an explanation once you're there." Mysterious. Alright. Looking at the clock, Vesper nodded to Nova. "It's time. Bay will be waiting at the corner of the Piazza Bifront. Shin will escort you." Piazza Bifront. "Good luck." A faint smile concealed gratitude, respect, and faith. Nova felt her palms getting clammy. Noticing her hesitation, Jorge came closer and pulled her into a warm embrace. "It's gonna go well, I know it." "We'll be waiting for your return, Nova." The young woman nodded. She appreciated that Onyx had come to see her off, despite her recent behavior. Heading to the door that led to the tunnels with Shin, she turned around to thank everyone or left the nest. turned around to thank everyone. The decision was impulsive, but it felt right. Thank you all for your support and help, and for accepting me as one of your own. Well, you are one of our own. She swallowed. Yes, but still. We're glad you joined us. Both the Nest and the Alliance have been better since you came around. Nova waved goodbye to everyone and left the Nest with Shin. The journey was short, and Shin, as always, was a man of few words. Soon they were at the exit. The warlock hesitated. Does he want to say something? Shin, is everything okay? Yes. Nova shrugged and turned to the door, but suddenly felt his thin fingers on her wrist. She looked at Shin, blinking in surprise. He released her hand right away. He looked away as if pondering his next words. I wanted to give you something. He tried not to show it, but he was clearly feeling awkward, and so was she. Just a hint of emotion in his hoarse voice was enough to make something inside her shrink slightly. Okay? It sounded more like a question, but Shin didn't seem to care. Turn around. And she did. The warlock moved her hair out of the way, exposing the back of her neck. That fleeting touch was polite and careful. Shin put 2 fingers on her skin and pressed lightly. Impora in inera ara. She twitched slyly, feeling tingles. Her first instinct was to pull away, but she forced herself to stand still. Nova caught herself thinking that she trusted Shin. Maybe he's starting to trust me too. After a few moments, the warlock removed his hand, and she turned to face him again, touching the sensitive skin on the back of her neck. What did you... The catcher stopped when she noticed him rubbing his reddened wrists. She vaguely remembered that there was a tattoo there, but now... Hold on. You transferred your... to me? Shin nodded. It's a protective ruin. It's small. Anything stronger wouldn't have stuck to you. I'll make a new one. It's not hard. His voice was deliberately calm, as if he hadn't done anything special, but Nova knew how much this gesture really meant. He wanted to protect her. He cared, even if he'd never admitted it. The witch opened her mouth to thank him, but Shin interrupted her with a frown. Go. It'll be late. He practically pushed her to the door, and she managed to smile at him before leaving. The journey to an unknown destination took several hours. Neither Bay nor Nova were interested in chatting, so the trip passed in complete silence. The catcher spent this time memorizing every line of the dossier. Welcome to Hogwarts. Finally, the car stopped at a strange-looking house. Once inside, the witch found herself in a room that resembled a library. Endless shelves stretched into the distance, crammed with books, scrolls, papers. The air smelled of old pages and cardamom. This house seemed much smaller from the outside. She took in the warmth and comfort, the quiet creaking of the floorboards beneath her feet, which formed an uneven, welcome song. I don't see anyone here. Continue exploring the room. Nova went further, studying the spines of volumes written in a variety of languages. The room remained covered in a shawl of silence, broken only by the sound of her footsteps. At some point, she started feeling like she was lost in a maze of bookcases. Frowning, she stopped. Where did Vesper send me? Welcome to the archives, Nova. Startled, the witch looked around. The voice seemed to be coming from everywhere at once, bright, calm, and strong. A figure was approaching her. Heavy robes streamed down to the floor, falling from their thin shoulders. Their feet were bare. I am the curator. Nova shook the outstretched hand. There was no need to introduce herself, so she waited. You must have questions since you're here. Sort of. I don't quite understand why I'm here. The curator's lips stretched to a soft smile. Why do people visit the archives? depends on who you ask. For some to steal informational and materials. Well then, it's nice to know that no one will be able to take anything out of here. I welcome people who want to know about the past. I don't want to sound arrogant, but I've always thought I had a good knowledge of history. I've read a lot. I doubt you've read more than I have. Come. Noah followed the curator to the center of the room. The further they went, the less she understood. They sat on the floor on the opposite sides of a small table. The Magistrum has deprived us of a lot, but the most prominent loss is our history. They took it. Our traditions were either forgotten or reworked to fit the narrative that the Church chose to propagate during the War of the Great Cleansing Fire. Now every book that is written by the other is censored. We don't have a voice. Those chosen by the presence grow up not knowing their place in this world or who they are. In what you have read, was there a word about our role in major scientific achievements? In the creation of Sandys? Do they write about everything, or how it was before the war, when others and ordinary people lived in peace? Questions filled the space, weighing down the air. No, they didn't write about it. That's why the archives were created. For people like you. Like me. Unsure. Scared. For people who are afraid to connect to their culture. For those who don't even know anything about it. Nova could hardly hold the forceful gaze of the curator's light, almost transparent eyes. She wanted to respond, but the words settled on her tongue like bitter dust. What are you afraid of, Time Catcher? She felt the tension that had been building up for what seemed like an eternity, getting dangerously close to its peak. Clasping her fingers, Nova replied. Loneliness. Making a mistake. Betrayal. I think those are 3 reasonable things we can all be afraid of. But I'll go with making a mistake. What if I make the wrong choice? There's no way back. What if I lose everything? It felt like the thin threads that held her together were about to tear. She would disintegrate, fall apart, disappear. Part of her wouldn't mind that at all. The curator extended their hands to her. You're here to confront the truth. You are on the verge of discovering your true self, your power, and before that happens, you must confront the truth. From time to time, you will encounter choices that require stat points. Pay attention to the stats throughout the game, and gain necessary amounts to unlock additional content. Stat points are not spent when you make such choices. I can help you, Daughter of the Moon. I don't have enough, I believe. I would love to, but, you know. I can just read something? Curator's smile was understanding, even though their disappointment was evident. Well, I'm sorry. This is the first time you've announced the stat points all damn book. Of course. They waved their hand, and one of the books from the far shelf obediently landed on the table, opening to a certain page. I'll leave you to it. Nova was alone with the book. As expected, it turned out to be completely different from what the young woman had read before. The text described the way initiations were held before the right to conduct this ritual became dependent on the Magistrum and the Church. Looks like back then it was a celebration for the whole community. Young others were initiated by the supreme representatives of the classes. They were mentored and supported. And they were taught that what responsibilities came with such power. Then they will understand what they can give to the world and what they can take from it. And therefore, everyone will have a choice how to use their gift, which path to choose. The witch continued flipping through the pages, taking in the words about the traditions of the past, about those times when ordinary people came to others for cures or blessings before hunting, times when others shared meals with hunters and their families at the same table. About the beginning of the War of the Great Cleansing Fire, every textbook approved of the Magistrum mentioned that others could no longer control themselves and become a threat to the world. But this book said that the magical community only began to show aggression in response to the growing cruelty and abuses of those belonging to the Church. Shaking her head, Nova soon slammed the volume shut. Reading didn't bring her any reassurance, but did give her food for thought. Getting up, she tried to find the curator, but there was no one in the room except for her. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'll be going. Thank you. After finding a way out, which took longer than she expected, the witch returned to Bay's car. The driver didn't betray her usual demeanor and silently started the car. As they drove, Nova nervously crumpled her clothes, trying to sort out her confused thoughts, although in vain. In the end, seeing the walls of the Vatican through the window, she pushed everything else out of her focus. Welcome to hell. I mean, what? As soon as she entered the hall, she felt the eyes of the Magistrum enforcers present. They were fewer of them than she expected, but that hardly made anything easier. It was quiet, save for the heavy ticking of the invisible clock. The catcher shivered, straightening her outfit, trying not to pay attention to the knot in her stomach. Nausea suddenly overtook her, and she barely managed not to give it away. I'm starting to really dislike potions. I can only hope that I don't throw up the most of the inopportune moment. The nerves or the elixir. The man sitting at the counter beckoned her to him. Regaining her composure as much as possible, Nova moved towards him. As she got closer, she realized that she had already seen his face. I've seen him in the vampire's salon. Lucian mentioned his name was Stefano. She said his name quietly, looked at her, nodding slightly. After her documents were sorted, Nova answered a few questions and then received a permission to go on to wait for the next stage. So far, so good. As soon as the thought flashed through her mind, someone grabbed her by the shoulder. Hold on. Turning around, the witch saw the same woman she'd encountered in the alley not too long ago. Does she remember me? The woman squinted. Stefano, I want to take a look at her documents. She went to Stefano at the counter and started talking. It seemed like she was saying something she didn't like. Finally, the enforcer snorted, rolled her eyes. She was obviously not satisfied with the outcome of this conversation, but whispering something to one of the other colleagues, she gestured to the other, allowing her to go on. Your previous actions attracted unnecessary attention. What, from the beginning of the book? Like, seriously? Looks like I'm in the clear. Thanks to Stefano, I've got to be extremely careful moving forward. The woman went out into the corridor. And I lost one status. A cool autumn wind making its way inside through the open window. She noticed the guard standing nearby shiver. Everything seemed so deprived of life, despite the rich decorations. Nova involuntarily returned to the text she read in the archives. What a joy initiation was for the community then, and what it had become now. From a celebration into something dry, sterile, and lonely. It'd probably be nice not to be alone right now. Not knowing what to do with herself, the witch began to inspect the interior. Polished floors, luxurious chandeliers, paintings, and ornate gold frames. On one of them, a talented artist depicted angels driving hooded human figures into the underworld. Looking closer, Nova noticed a small letter MS on their wrists. A little more time and the same brand would appear on her arm. The brand she'd been so afraid of all her life. The brand that would mark her as unholy. It's for the greater good. Nova clenched her fist, repeating this thought over and over again. She couldn't let her fear ruin everything. They'd worked so long to get closer to the goal, and if she got cold feet at the most crucial moment, what would that make her? A traitor. A traitor, that's what. I can't fail. The catcher knew what her purpose was, and she had to keep this path until the end. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. A bell rang outside, chilling her to the bone. It's time. She got up and walked to the right hall. Vesper might have wanted Nova to see initiation as rebirth, but she herself felt like she was about to take her last breath. The slam of heavy doors marked the point of no return. Nova forced herself to breathe more deeply and slowly. The setting sun broke through the stained glass windows, painting the hall with a kaleidoscope of translucent colors. The air was saturated with the pungent smell of incense, a resinous, deep aroma that made her head spin. The saints watched her movements from the walls and ceilings like mute overseers. She walked forward, her soul was trembling, and there was a lump in her throat. She walked forward, each step echoing in all the space that took her further away from her former life and brought her closer to a new chapter that had not been written yet. She walked forward, knowing that most of all she wanted to turn and run away from the hall, the Vatican, from Rome, the church, from the Alliance, from herself. The catcher stopped in the center, in a pool of dim light where a priest was already waiting for her. It was as if she only now noticed his presence there. The young man held his hands behind his back, watching her with a calm gaze. "Good evening. My name is Renato. I will be conducting the first stage of your initiation." His voice sounded measured and quiet, not spreading across the entire hall. He offered her a soft smile, and the woman smiled back uncertainly. "Hello. I know who you are." After a short pause, Renato breathed out the last word as if it were a secret that he'd been keeping for many years. "Nova." Her heart sank. "Thank the What? I'm sorry, what? Sure, I'll give him 11. What? 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 You get a 4 and I'm confused? Alright, so we gained 2 sun, 1 moon. We would have gained 5 status, but we only gained 4, but at least we're gaining it. This was a big chapter for that. Power of Presence is a 6, and then there's diamonds to be earned. With that being said, before I continue on, if you did enjoy, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And no description, plenty of things to check out there, ways to support, and ways to become an intricate part of this family that we have here. With that being said, there's also the join and thanks features on YouTube. Aside from that, it was a bit weird seeing that whole rate the developers or tip them. Basically, that's how I look at it. It's like, hey, tip them for how much work that they've done and whatnot. And I'm just sitting there going, listen, we spend a lot of diamonds on this, okay? Like, I gave you the low end, okay? I at least wanted to give you something, but, like, how exactly does that affect you? Like, in a way, that was, like, 4 ads. And I'm already watching those ads to make sure I get the diamonds that I need, which I'm gonna have to watch another one for 3, so I'm confused. So maybe someone can better educate me in regards to that or give me an idea. I don't know. Me as a content creator, right? Like doing voices and doing the reading and everything else, I'm never like, hey guys, if you know that you've reached the end of this, video, make sure to tip me. Would you like to tip me $1, $5, $10, or 20? It'd be nice, but at the same time, I'm just like, thanks for watching, really. So it was a bit weird. Yeah, no. Aside from that, it's a bit interesting. Again, I feel like they should have moved that little disclaimer about your stats and whatnot. That should have literally and figuratively been well before now. It shouldn't have came out now, because a lot of us have already made choices. And we kind of figured that moon or sun was kind of like a thing, but we really didn't know, right? And yeah, now I have 15, and I needed 16 for that option, but there's really nothing you can do about it, and I don't watch walkthroughs or playthroughs. So hey, at least you guys are learning from me and what I'm doing, and hopefully it'll better help you. But with that being said,